Welcome back to the Recession Resistant Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Brandon Cobb, co-founder of HBG Capital. And in today's episode, I want to address the flaws in our financial culture, especially here in the United States. Yes, I said financial culture, how our culture currently views finances, and most importantly, what they don't do. When I was writing down all of these points and the experiences that had happened to me, and I've seen happen to my colleagues and my friends and my family, I noticed there was a lot of stuff that we're not currently doing. You know, a lot of the times, a lot of the flaws in society could be things that we are doing. We're participating, eating too much junk food. We're taking on too much debt. But this was really interesting because we're neglecting these things. We're purposely leaving them out and not having these conversations. And a lot of this has to do with your children, when they're young and bringing them up and talking about money, leaving a legacy behind when you're older, not talking to your kids about, hey, here's my plan when I'm going to be gone, 10 years from now. Like, here's the estate and how I have it set up instead of just dumping it on them. So there's a lot of very deep lessons here that I've had to learn the hard way. Others I've seen others learn the hard way. And so I know not to do that, not to make those mistakes. And so they talk about being the change you want to see in the world. It first starts with throwing a pebble in the pond. So here we go. The first point that I want to bring up that we just fail basically as a society is not talking to our kids about money. When I was young, I grew up in my mom and dad were able to elevate us from a blue collar working family when my dad was doing HVAC work. My mom was a underpaid school teacher. There was 3 kiddos that they were having to raise. And, my dad was able to go to school in the part-time and get this computer engineering education and ended up getting a great job as a computer engineer in Memphis, Tennessee. We moved from Birmingham, and he was able to bring us up a step above, and we were blessed to live in a neighborhood with people that were doing a lot better than my mom and dad, and they were able to put us in that environment, and it made all the difference. But my parents never sat us down and really had a good conversation about money. And probably part of the reason is because they weren't the most financially literate either. They were just taking the advice of their mom and dad, which was focus on saving money and not on focusing on how to make more money. Everything was save, 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 save. I remember when the iPhone first came out, for years, I never purchased any of these little apps that were 99 cents because my dad would drill it into my brain to save money. You don't need that crap. That's just a waste of money. And, my mom was the same way. They said, save your money. But they never talked about investing your money or how to invest that. In fact, at the dinner table, it was, if you brought up like money and finances, it was almost looked down upon. Like, hey, don't bring this up. We don't talk about money at the dinner table. And looking back on it now, I find it very, very odd. And, to this day, I'm not really sure why, but a lot of my friends and colleagues, they've had the same experience. They grew up in this environment where their parents did not talk to them about money, or even worse, it was seen as something not to talk about for some reason. Like, talking about finances was a bad thing or shunned upon. And maybe it has something to do with religious roots and, money being the root of all evil, something like that. But I really feel like what I want to do with my kids is make money conversations a part of the daily life and really teach by doing some things. I've got some really cool ideas set up that maybe I'll share at the end of this video. But lesson number 1 is not talking to your kids about money. It is a huge flaw in our society that we need to do something about. The second, and I'm living this right now, is not sitting your children down when they're older, when you're about to pass away, and explaining to them what the plan is with the estate. How do you have things set up? Right now, my mom and dad are going through something tragic, and it's not the first time I've seen this happen. When we were flipping a lot of houses, I would get a lot of calls from people who had inherited homes, and I would be the one trying to piece together the deal and get all the signatures from all of the inheritors on the property. And a lot of people would stop talking to each other once money became involved, once they're about to get money from the sale of this home. I mean, it just caused so much toxicity. It tore families apart. And unfortunately, that's something that's going on right now in my family, because my grandparents did not sit all of the siblings down and explain to them how they had the estate set up and how it was going to work and what their vision was. They wanted to avoid the drama. And that's caused the family to basically be, torn apart. My mom and dad aren't as close with some of the my dad's brothers and sisters because of this. And it's just so sad because there's so many miscommunications or lack of communications and a lot of assumptions when somebody is in charge of, divvying out this estate, and people just assume the worst about the people that they love. And it just tears me apart to see them going through this. And if my grandparents had just sat them down at a table and explained to them, hey, here's how we have this set up. We've got these assets in this specific location. They're going to go to so-and-so for this reason. We've got these assets in this location and they're going to go to so-and-so. And we've got so much money set aside. And here's how it's going to be broken up. And we were partners with one of the siblings. So everything that was part of that partnership is going to go to them. So make sure that when you're creating a legacy plan, to sit your kids down and make sure you're having a conversation with them around how the estate is going to be planned out and what the expectation is, and have a very good game plan and vehicle to do that. The third biggest flaw I see in our financial culture is the value we place on somebody's net worth. We talk about it all the time, how much money so-and-so is making, how big of a house they have, what kind of car they got, how much money they're making seems to be tied to that individual's worth, how we value that individual. I mean, you got to think about it. We place a lot more value on billionaires like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos than we do the homeless guy living in a cardboard box on the side of the street. And that's a problem. We don't see human beings for who they are, which is human beings, and we place way too much emphasis on money. So much so that people get into toxic relationships just for the money. I've had female friends who have, and some of them might currently still be in some super toxic relationships because that person made a lot of money and they valued the money that person was making more than they did their own integrity and core values to go out and select somebody that was better aligned with that integrity and that core values. And it just leads to all kinds of problems. When you marry somebody for money, or you're only interested in people based on their net worth, not only is that the root cause of toxic relationships, but if you, God forbid, bring children into this world with that person, you're going to create a toxic environment for those kids. And that in turn is going to cause a very difficult upbringing. And that child is probably not going to be as productive a member of society, or have some kind of emotional or mental damage, or basically have some kind of handicap that's been learned based on that toxic relationship from the parents. So not placing as much emphasis on somebody's humanity when it comes to how much money they make is something else that we need to work on in society. The fourth flaw that I see in our financial culture, and this is the one that really gets at me the most, is the universities are not teaching financial literacy. Now that I think back 12, 13, 14 years ago when I was in college, at what was actually being taught to me, what I was paying tens of thousands of dollars to learn, was a bunch of hogwash. They've got classes that are not designed to create any critical thinking or cognitive stimulation, and it's literally just to collect a paycheck and have something to teach. So if we're going to pay all this money to go to school, we might as well learn some things that are actually going to set ourselves up for success. Now, there's some great financial literacy classes like finance and accounting that you can use in everyday application. Those are fantastic. But the majority of classes don't teach financial literacy. I think I was taught more financial literacy by my high school than I was college, because in high school, they actually sat us down and one, they had like a little investing class where we could go. We had a fake stock market account and we were given like $1,000 and we could go and invest this money and kind of see how it does. And we did that for like a whole semester, and it kind of taught us the ins and outs of the stock market, or at least dip our toes in the water when investing. That was actually pretty cool. Another class they had in high school was they taught compound interest and how it works with credit cards. So if you take out $10,000 of loans and you make the minimum payments and get charged 20% interest per year, you end up paying like $40,000 over a 8 or 9 year period that it takes to pay off that debt. And Einstein said that I think it was like the 10th wonder in the world or whatever was compound interest. Those who understand it make money from it. Those who don't pay it, something like that. And that's an important lesson. Colleges don't teach that because we're burdened with student loan debt. I can darn near tell you that if people knew the burden of debt before signing on to go to college to get a bunch of that debt and dig that big old hole, they probably wouldn't go to college if they were looking at college as an actual ROI. So this is a huge issue. They don't teach how to take care of your mental well-being. They don't teach mindset in schools. And I would argue that's probably the number one most important thing is mindset and preparing you for the real world, what it's going to take. I feel like college needs to be less in the classroom and more physical application in the real world. We've got the capability to do it, but for some reason or another, our financial culture does not. So what can we do about all of these flaws? So at the beginning of this episode, I said I'm going to attempt to throw a pebble in the pond here in the hopes of creating a little bit of a ripple effect. But it starts with everybody going home and having a conversation with your kids about money, teaching them what it is, teaching them how it works. And if you're not somebody that understands it, take an invested interest in yourself. Start reading books. All the knowledge you ever need for investing is already out there, and it's dirt cheap. You can get it on Audible. You can get it on Amazon for $10, $15, and then apply it. All the applications are out there. All the coaches, all the mentors, everybody you need to learn this is there, and start having a conversation once you know it with your children. The second is, and it starts at home, not having the conversations around your children about how important somebody is because of how much money they make. Really teaching and driving home the core values of your family. Because when you get to the core values, everything else disappears. When you can really teach your kids what it means to have integrity, what it means to be a good person, what it means to be growth-minded, what it means to be a stewardship, service first, to have that servant's tower be bigger than your ego. If you can have conversations around the core values, then children will know what is truly important in a person, and it's not money. Third thing that we need to be doing is, if you're older and you're looking at leaving a legacy or an inheritance on your kids, please, dear God, don't make the mistake my grandparents did. Sit all of your siblings down together and explain to them what the plan is and why the plan is that way. That way it does not tear your family apart. You spent so many years building this amazing family that you're hopefully proud of, and to see it ripped away because of some disagreements or miscommunication or assumptions that happen when you just leave it all to them, that would be a terrible thing. So sit them down and walk them through it. The next is, what do we do about the universities? This is tough because, most universities are private, but it starts with getting loud and showing up and voicing what kind of classes that you want in the school. I joke that if I'm ever a trillionaire, I'm going to buy up all the private universities around the country. And I'm going to completely reform the educational system with financial literacy. It's my individual BHAG. But it's getting involved in the university, going to the sources, going to the deans, communicating what classes need to be taught. Where are our kids not getting the education that they want? Where are we lacking as a society? And getting to the top and getting loud can be the best way to have a voice when it comes to switching things over and making the changes needed in these universities. That's it for today's episode. If you got value from this, please leave us a review, subscribe, and follow us. And if you're interested in learning more about creating passive income from recession-resistant real estate, book a phone call with us or a Zoom call. We would love to get to know you. You can do that on our website, hbgcapital.net. Till next time.